Arrogant woman tore the dress, thinking she was just a black waitress. Her millionaire husband saw. The ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers, laughter blending with the soft echo of violins. Waiters moved in quiet rhythm, balancing trays of champagne and crimson wine. At the center of the room, Rebecca Lang stood like royalty in a silver gown that caught every flicker of light. Her smile was practiced, elegant but sharp, the kind that measured people by the weight of their wallets. Across the table, Amara Collins adjusted the edge of a glass, her expression calm and unreadable. She'd served countless faces like Rebecca's, faces that never saw her as more than a uniform. "Careful with that wine," Rebecca said loudly enough for her circle to hear. It would be such a tragedy if the help stained someone important tonight. A ripple of forced laughter followed. Amara steadied the bottle. The wine flowed smoothly, not a single drop wasted. But Rebecca wasn't satisfied. She leaned closer, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Tell me, dear, do you even know what region this vintage is from?" Amara met her eyes for the first time. "Bordeaux. Chateau Margaux, 2015, she said softly, her French flawless. Silence spread like a ripple through the room. Eyes turned. Rebecca's smirk faltered, her confidence cracked, just slightly. Amara stepped back, her posture straight, her dignity untouched. In that single moment, the balance of power shifted, and everyone felt it. Rebecca's laughter returned, sharper this time, slicing through the music that floated from the grand piano. "Well, how impressive," she said, the corners of her lips trembling with concealed irritation. "It seems our waitress has quite the tongue for accents. Perhaps you learned it from watching films." The guests around her exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. The air had turned heavy, the kind of tension that made crystal glasses feel fragile in one's hand. Amara remained steady, eyes lowered just enough to keep her composure intact. "I studied linguistics for 2 years before business school," she replied gently. "Languages help me understand people better." Rebecca's brow arched, her pride refusing to yield. "Business school? My dear, surely you mean a night class or some local program, yes? Not everyone can handle the real thing." The silence deepened. Even the pianist hesitated, his fingers freezing above the keys. Amara adjusted the tray in her hand and spoke with quiet clarity. "Harvard Business School. Class of next year." The word Harvard cut through the room like glass breaking. The murmurs began almost immediately, whispers behind napkins, glances traded between spouses, disbelief spreading like perfume in the air. Daniel Ruiz, standing near the back of the room, had been watching quietly. His expression was unreadable, but there was something thoughtful in his gaze. Recognition, perhaps, or the weight of realization. Rebecca forced a laugh, brittle and too loud. "Oh, how delightful. A Harvard scholar, pouring wine at charity dinners. What a modern fairy tale." Her friends chuckled weakly, unsure if joining her laughter would make them cruel or cowardly. Amara nodded once, her calm unshaken. "Education does not pay the bills. My family needed help. This is how I contribute." Rebecca's painted smile faltered. For the first time, the arrogance on her face wavered. Something in Amara's tone, not defiant, not angry, just factual, stripped away the false comfort of superiority that Rebecca wore like jewelry. Daniel stepped forward slightly, his voice smooth but firm. "That is called responsibility, Rebecca. A quality some people are born with, and others never learn." Rebecca's lips parted, but no words came. The sting of embarrassment spread across her face, and she quickly turned away, pretending to fix the hem of her gown. The conversation dissolved into murmurs again, but the damage was done. The image of the confident hostess had cracked before everyone's eyes. Amara excused herself quietly, retreating toward the corridor that led to the kitchen. Her steps were measured, her breathing even, but inside her thoughts burned like fire. She reached into her apron and glanced at the small recorder she had turned on before stepping into the dining hall. Every word, every insult, every forced laugh, captured in perfect clarity. Her pulse steadied as she whispered to herself, "Real-world data." For weeks, she had been studying corporate and social bias for her thesis on power dynamics in modern workplaces. Tonight was not an accident. It was an observation turned into proof. What she had endured at that table was not just humiliation. It was a textbook case of systemic arrogance disguised as class. In the kitchen, the head chef glanced at her with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine," Amara said softly. "It is just another night." But she knew it was not. Something had shifted. The line between observer and participant had blurred. She stood by the sink, staring at her reflection in the steel surface. Not a victim, not a servant, but a witness to the truth. Behind her, the laughter from the ballroom had softened. The music resumed, but its warmth no longer reached her. Daniel Ruiz lingered at the edge of the event, still thinking about what he had seen. The way Amara had handled the situation, no anger, no scene, just quiet strength, had left a deeper mark than any argument could. When Rebecca raised her glass again and tried to reclaim her dominance with jokes about help that talks back, Daniel's patience broke. He excused himself from the table, stepped outside for air, and made a silent decision. The next time he saw Amara Collins, it would not be as a guest addressing a waitress, but as a man recognizing a mind too powerful to ignore. Inside the kitchen, Amara turned off the recorder and placed it carefully in her bag. Her face softened as she exhaled. She had gathered everything she needed, for her research, for her dignity, for the truth that would one day demand to be heard. She picked up a fresh tray of glasses and walked back into the light of the ballroom, her steps quiet but unbroken. Every head that turned to look at her now saw something different. Not a server, not a shadow, but a woman carrying invisible fire. The next morning, the echoes of last night's gala still rippled through the city's social circles. At first, it was whispers, low conversations exchanged over cappuccinos and croissants in corner cafes, murmurs in the back of chauffeured cars, fragments of gossip that slipped between manicured lips.
"Did you see that waitress?"
The one who spoke fluent French? Rebecca Lang looked furious. The story spread like perfume through the air, sweet for some, suffocating for others. Rebecca Lang sat in her penthouse suite overlooking the skyline, the morning light glinting off the crystal glass she clutched too tightly. Her reflection in the window mocked her, perfect, polished but undeniably shaken. The memory of that moment replayed over and over, the laughter that died when Amara spoke, the look of surprise on every guest's face, and Daniel Ruiz's subtle smirk from across the room. That single scene, that slip of power, burned her pride. Rebecca Lang, daughter of the late diplomat Edward Lang, was not used to being embarrassed, especially not by someone she considered beneath her. Her manicured nails tapped the glass rhythmically, her jaw tightening with each beat of her own ego. She picked up her phone and dialed the event coordinator. Her voice dripped with false calm. "I want that waitress gone, immediately." The coordinator hesitated, his words tangled in fear and confusion. "Miss Lang."
The staff were contracted through the restaurant.
"I'll need to contact the manager." "Then do it," she snapped, her tone slicing through the air like glass. "No one humiliates me and keeps their job." Across town, the restaurant manager, Marco Bennett, received the call. He frowned, staring at the event report still sitting on his desk. He had seen what happened. He saw how Rebecca had provoked that girl, Amara. He saw the spilled wine, the forced laughter, the cruelty masked as charm. And he had also seen the quiet power in Amara's composure. When the coordinator relayed Rebecca's demand, Marco's response was measured. "Miss Collins did nothing wrong," he said firmly. "I won't fire her for someone else's insecurity." The coordinator sighed. "You know who her father was, right?" "I do," Marco replied. "And that's exactly why I won't bow to her." That night, Amara sat by her small desk, surrounded by books, papers, and the soft hum of her laptop. The glow of the screen reflected in her tired but determined eyes. Her apartment was modest, a single-bedroom space filled with symbols of persistence, sticky notes with motivational quotes, a half-empty coffee cup, a Harvard sweatshirt draped over her chair. Her voice played softly in the background, her own recording from the gala. Rebecca's voice dripping with arrogance. "Oh, you can read French? How adorable. Did someone teach you that while serving tables?" Then Amara's calm reply, elegant and effortless. "Actually, madame, I studied it in Paris." Amara paused the recording, leaning back. She whispered to herself, "They never expect it. They never imagine the girl behind the tray has read more books than the people she serves." Her eyes moved to the open document on her screen. The title read, "Bias in Luxury Service Environments, a psychological and economic analysis. Her Harvard MBA thesis. She typed slowly, her words deliberate. True professionalism is not defined by uniform or status, but by the dignity with which one handles injustice. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello? A deep, composed voice replied. Miss Collins? This is Daniel Ruiz. Her hand froze over her keyboard. She remembered him from the gala, the one who had noticed her, the one whose eyes did not carry mockery. I wanted to apologize, Daniel continued. What happened last night was unacceptable. You handled it with grace. Thank you, sir, she said cautiously. But there's no need to apologize for someone else's behavior. I respect that, Daniel said. Actually, that's part of why I'm calling. I run Ruiz Dynamics, a consultancy focused on leadership and inclusion. I'd like to discuss a possible collaboration. Are you available to meet this week? Amara blinked, unsure what to say. Part of her was flattered. Another part was cautious. Collaboration? Yes, Daniel replied. I believe your perspective could help shape our corporate inclusion program. You seem to understand the difference between tolerance and respect. For a moment, silence filled the line. She weighed the offer carefully. Was it genuine interest or polished pity? I'll think about it, she said softly. When the call ended, Amara stared out the window. The city glowed beneath her, alive with stories of ambition, inequality, and resilience. Her heart raced, not out of fear but possibility. She whispered to herself, maybe this is the door I've been waiting for. The next morning, she walked into Ruiz Dynamics' sleek glass building, her nerves cloaked behind calm professionalism. The receptionist looked up. Miss Amara Collins? Mr. Ruiz is expecting you. As she entered the conference room, Daniel stood, offering a warm, professional smile. Thank you for coming, he said. I know last night must have been difficult. Amara returned the smile politely. It was educational. Daniel chuckled softly, admiring her poise. That's one way to describe it. He gestured for her to sit. The room was modern, sunlight reflecting off polished steel. Behind him, the city skyline stretched endlessly, a symbol of power and perspective. I read your background, Daniel began. You've worked in hospitality for years, studied linguistics, and now you're at Harvard Business School. That combination is rare. Amara nodded slightly. I've always believed language reveals how people see the world. Sometimes how they see others. Daniel leaned forward. That's exactly why I want you here. We're developing a diversity and inclusion audit. Most consultants speak in theories. You've lived the reality. His words carried sincerity, and for the first time in a long while, Amara felt seen, not as help, not as background, but as someone whose insight mattered. Still, she stayed cautious. If I do this, she said, I want to be involved in more than just symbolic gestures. I'm interested in impact, real change. Daniel smiled. That's exactly what I'm after. She agreed to a short-term consulting role, both as part of her thesis and as a step toward something larger. As they shook hands, Amara noticed something in Daniel's eyes. Not pity, but respect. Walking out of the building, she took a deep breath. The city air felt lighter, her steps steadier. For the first time since the gala, she felt control shifting back to her side. Across town, however, Rebecca Lang sat with her publicist, scrolling through online mentions of the incident. A video clip from the gala, recorded secretly by a guest, had begun to circulate. The comments were ruthless. That waitress handled herself better than the so-called philanthropist. Money doesn't buy class. Rebecca's nails dug into her palm. Her voice trembled with rage. She thinks she's won. Let's see how long that lasts. The storm was not over. It was only gathering strength. Weeks turned into months, and the quiet girl who once stood with a tray at a gala now walked through glass hallways with a clipboard in hand and confidence in her step. Amara Collins was no longer invisible. Her ideas echoed through meeting rooms. Her name appeared on reports that reached top executives, and her voice began to carry weight in rooms where few people looked like her or listened to her kind before. Every morning she arrived early. Her workspace was small but bright, tucked near a corner window that overlooked the city. From there, she built her plans, employee training models, cultural audits, and diversity strategies that made people pause and think. What started as a consulting project for her thesis had grown into something much bigger. She held workshops for managers, explaining how unconscious bias shaped hiring and promotion decisions. At first, some listened out of obligation, nodding politely. But as Amara spoke, her calm authority began to shift the room. Her examples were practical, her words honest but never accusing. Slowly, people began to understand. Respect, she told one group, is not given because of a title. It's earned through action, through how you treat those who cannot give you anything in return. By the end of her session, the same executives who once smirked at the idea of inclusion training were asking thoughtful questions. Amara's influence was growing, and Daniel Ruiz noticed every step of it. He admired her not just for her intelligence, but for her discipline. She was never showy, never self-promoting. She led through quiet conviction, the kind that made people follow her without realizing it. Daniel often found himself watching her during meetings, impressed by how effortlessly she commanded respect without raising her voice. One evening, after a long day, he passed by her office. She was still there, reviewing data, her focus unbroken. "You should go home, Amara," Daniel said lightly. "It's past 8. She smiled without looking up. "Almost done. I just want to make sure the figures on pay equity are correct before tomorrow's presentation." Daniel leaned against the doorframe. "You remind me of someone." "Who's that?" she asked, glancing up. "My younger self," he said with a smile. "Except you're smarter." She laughed softly. "Then I'm in good company." The connection between them was professional, but there was a shared understanding, a respect that went beyond job titles or backgrounds. Both had fought their own battles to be taken seriously, but not everyone viewed it that way. Far across the city, inside a mansion adorned with art and pride, Rebecca Lang stared at a company newsletter spread across her tablet screen. Her eyes froze on one line. Ruiz Dynamics welcomes consultant Amara Collins. Her pulse quickened. She reread the name again and again. It could not be. The same Amara from the gala, the waitress she had humiliated in front of hundreds? Her heart pounded, her lips tightening. "No," she whispered to herself. "This must be a mistake." She scrolled down, and there it was, a photo. Amara, standing beside Daniel Ruiz, shaking his hand at a press event. Her smile was composed, confident, powerful. Rebecca's fingers trembled as she slammed the tablet shut. Anger washed over her in waves. "Of course," she hissed. Of course he would do this. The noble businessman and his little redemption project. The jealousy she felt was cold and sharp. It was not just about Amara. It was about control, about losing the narrative she had built around herself. That night, she confronted Daniel in his study. He was reviewing reports when she entered without knocking. "So it's true," she said, her voice shaking. "You hired her." Daniel looked up calmly. "Rebecca." "Do not say my name like that," she snapped. "That woman, the waitress who embarrassed me, is now part of your company." "Do you realize how this looks?" Daniel closed his laptop. "Yes, I do. It looks like we hired someone competent." Rebecca laughed bitterly. "Competent? She's playing you, Daniel. You really think someone like her got into Harvard on merit? She probably learned to charm her way through powerful men like you." He stood, his expression firm. "That's enough." "She's using you!" Rebecca shouted. "She humiliated me, and now she's back for revenge." "And you're too blind to see it." Daniel's voice deepened, calm but unyielding. "The only person who humiliated you was yourself. Amara handled your cruelty with more grace than I've ever seen. Maybe you should learn from her." Rebecca stared at him, stunned. "You're defending her?" "I'm defending integrity," he said. "Something I thought we both valued." She stepped closer, her tone venomous. "Do you know what people will think? That you're having an affair with her, that she's climbing her way up through you." Daniel sighed, his patience thinning. "Let them think what they want. I know the truth, and so do you." Rebecca's jaw tightened. "You've changed, Daniel." "No," he said quietly. "I finally stopped pretending that arrogance is strength." For a moment, the room went silent, except for the soft ticking of the clock. Rebecca's face hardened. Without another word, she turned and stormed out. The door slammed behind her, echoing through the halls like a final warning. The next morning, Rebecca began her quiet war. She met with board members, whispered poison into friendly ears, hinting that Daniel's new consultant had ulterior motives. "You know how it goes," she said with feigned concern. "Men with power, women with ambition. It's a dangerous mix." She smiled politely, pretending to be the worried wife while her lies spread like smoke. Within days, rumors began to circulate. Some employees started to look at Amara differently. Longer glances in elevators, murmured conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Amara noticed the shift but stayed silent. She focused on her work, even as whispers followed her like shadows. Then, one afternoon, she received a message from her mentor, Professor Linda Zhao. "Call me when you can. It's important." Amara stepped outside to take the call. "Professor Zhao? Is everything all right?" "I've seen the news, Amara," the older woman said gently. "There are rumors about you and Mr. Ruiz." Amara closed her eyes. "I know, it's not true." "I know that," Linda said, "but perception can be dangerous, especially when truth is quiet." "What should I do?" "You still have that recording, don't you?" "From the gala?" Amara hesitated. "Yes." "Then maybe it's time the world sees it," Linda suggested softly. "Not for revenge, but for truth. Sometimes silence protects the wrong people." Amara stood in the courtyard, the city wind brushing against her face. She remembered that night, the laughter, the red wine, Rebecca's mocking tone. She had recorded it to document bias for her thesis, never intending to use it publicly. But now the lies were growing louder than the truth. "I don't want to ruin her," Amara said. Linda's voice was calm. "You won't ruin her, Amara. She's doing that herself. You'll just stop her from taking you down with her." That night, Amara sat at her desk again, the same laptop glowing softly in the dim light. The video file was still there. She hovered her cursor over the screen, her finger trembling. She could hear Rebecca's voice from the recording sneering, "You're just a server. Don't act like you belong here." And then her own voice, steady, calm. "Everyone belongs where respect exists." Amara exhaled slowly. Maybe the world needed to hear that. Maybe silence had gone on long enough. But she was not impulsive. Before doing anything, she decided to speak with Daniel. The next morning, she entered his office, her eyes steady. "I need to show you something." Daniel looked up, curious. "What is it?" She played the video. The sound of that night filled the room, the laughter, the humiliation, and the dignity with which she stood her ground. When the clip ended, silence settled. Daniel leaned back, visibly moved. "You've been carrying this since that night?" Amara nodded. "I recorded it for research. I never planned to use it. But now people are twisting the truth." Daniel's expression was firm. "Do what you need to do. You have my full support." She looked at him, uncertain. "If I post this, it'll go viral. It'll affect you too." He smiled faintly. "Then let it. I'd rather stand beside truth than hide behind image." For the first time, Amara saw not the CEO, but the man, a leader unafraid of honesty. As she left his office, she felt the weight of her decision pressing against her heart. She was about to step into the storm, not to destroy someone, but to reclaim her voice. That night, she opened her social media account. The caption was simple: "Some truths are not meant to stay silent." She uploaded the video, and within hours the world began to watch. The morning it happened, the world woke up to silence and then chaos. The video had appeared on social media at dawn, 1 minute and 43 seconds long. It began with laughter, crystal glasses clinking, the hum of violins, and then the voice that made the internet stop. "You're just a server. Don't act like you belong here." Rebecca Lang's words captured in perfect clarity. Within an hour, the clip was everywhere, on news outlets, forums, reaction videos, and headlines that screamed across every screen. High society philanthropist humiliates waitress at charity gala. CEO's wife caught in racist rant. Power, privilege, and prejudice, the fall of Rebecca Lang. The video spread faster than anyone could control. Hashtags trended globally. Celebrities, activists, and journalists shared it, condemning the cruelty on display. Memes appeared. Think pieces followed. It was no longer just a video. It was a mirror showing people the ugliness they often ignored. Inside her mansion, Rebecca watched in disbelief. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the avalanche of comments. "This is disgusting. How can someone so privileged act like this?" She ruined her own life in less than 2 minutes. Her phone would not stop ringing. Calls from friends, reporters, her publicist, even her family. But she could not answer any of them. Her throat was tight, her mind spinning. She turned on the TV, hoping it was not as bad as it looked. But every channel carried the same story. News anchors replayed the footage, their tones heavy with disappointment. Rebecca Lang, wife of industrial magnate Daniel Ruiz, is under fire today after a viral video surfaced showing her making racially insensitive remarks toward a black waitress at a charity event. Rebecca switched it off, her heart pounding. She pressed her palms against her temples, whispering, "No. No, this cannot be happening." She looked around the living room, marble floors, chandeliers, priceless art, and realized none of it could protect her. Every luxury now felt like evidence of her vanity. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her assistant. "Rebecca," the voice stammered. "The sponsors, they've pulled out of the foundation gala next month, and the charity board wants you to resign." I am sorry." Rebecca sank into the couch, the words echoing through her mind. Resign, pulled out. Sorry. Everything she had built, the social clubs, the charity dinners, the influence, was slipping away. Her so-called friends were already deleting photos, unfollowing her online, pretending they had never known her. For the first time in her life, the woman who had owned every room now found herself invisible. Meanwhile, the company Daniel led was under intense scrutiny. Reporters gathered outside Ruiz Dynamics, cameras flashing, microphones raised. Daniel stood before the press, calm and resolute. Behind him, the company's banner read, "Integrity, Innovation, Inclusion." He adjusted the microphone and spoke firmly. "Recent events have deeply saddened us all. The words spoken in that video do not represent who we are or what we stand for. Our commitment to inclusion, dignity, and respect is not negotiable. I stand by that fully." A reporter shouted, "Mr. Ruiz, do you support your wife?" Daniel paused. "I support accountability," he said, "and the belief that everyone, regardless of who they are, deserves respect." The statement was clear, the message undeniable. Inside the company, Amara watched the press conference from her office. Her expression was calm, unreadable. She had not said a word publicly since the video went viral. She did not need to. The truth was speaking loudly enough. Colleagues passed her in the hallway, offering quiet nods of respect. No one dared to gossip now. The same people who once questioned her place in the company were now inspired by her composure. At lunch, she sat alone in the break room, her meal untouched. She stared out the window at the skyline, tall, gleaming towers built on ambition. She had always believed that power revealed who people truly were. Now she had seen it firsthand. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mentor, Professor Zhao. "The world sees you now, Amara. You handled it with grace." Amara typed a short reply, "Thank you. I just let truth breathe." That night, the mansion that once hosted glittering parties stood in silence. Rebecca sat in her study, surrounded by newspaper clippings, messages from lawyers, and unsigned apologies drafted by her PR team. Her reflection in the glass window looked unfamiliar, tired, hollow, smaller than she remembered. The house felt colder. Daniel had not come home. They had not spoken since the video leaked. She picked up her phone and opened the viral video again, unable to stop herself from watching. There she was, laughing, taunting, belittling. The expression on her own face made her sick. Then she saw Amara, poised, quiet, unshaken. The same woman she had mocked was the only person in that video who carried dignity. Rebecca turned off the phone and covered her face. For the first time, tears came, hot, unstoppable, honest. Not tears for the humiliation, but for the truth that had finally cornered her. She whispered into the emptiness, "I did this. No one else." The chandeliers above her glowed dimly, reflecting across the marble like fading stars. She had built her life around control, controlling her image, her friends, her world. But control could not protect her from herself. The next morning, she packed a small bag and left the mansion. No chauffeur, no assistant, just her and the sound of her heels echoing on the marble one last time. Across town, Amara arrived at the same venue where everything had begun, the grand ballroom of the gala. It was empty now, the lights dim, the tables covered with white cloths. The air smelled faintly of old perfume and dust. She walked slowly across the room, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. She stopped at the exact spot where Rebecca had humiliated her months ago. The silence felt sacred, as if the walls still remembered every sound from that night. The laughter, the whispers, the pain. Amara closed her eyes. In her mind, she replayed it, not as trauma, but as triumph. She remembered standing there, wine spilled on her tray, her dignity tested before hundreds. She remembered Rebecca's cruel words and her own quiet reply. And now, standing in the same place, she realized how far she had come. The humiliation that once burned her had become her strength. She whispered softly to the empty room, "Thank you." Not to Rebecca, not to fate, but to the pain that had shaped her purpose. When she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in one of the tall mirrors. For the first time, she saw herself not as someone surviving injustice, but as someone rewriting what justice looked like. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. The light hit the glass doors, scattering reflections across the marble. Amara paused for a moment, watching how the light transformed even the coldest surfaces into something beautiful. As she walked out, a few reporters waiting by the entrance called her name. "Ms. Collins, do you have any comment on the viral video?" She smiled faintly and said, "The truth needs no defense." Then she walked away, calm, graceful, and free. Back at the mansion, Rebecca sat alone in her garden. The world she once ruled no longer needed her approval. She had all the money, but none of the peace. She thought of Amara, not with hatred now, but with the painful recognition of someone who had been wrong all her life. For the first time, she understood what Daniel had tried to teach her, that dignity cannot be bought and humility cannot be faked. The garden lights flickered as the sun set. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I hope she forgives me one day." But forgiveness, she realized, was not something she could demand. It was something she would have to earn, through silence, through reflection, through change. True power is not in wealth, or titles, or privilege. It is in the courage to stay kind when the world turns cruel. The video that had once been a symbol of humiliation had now become a lesson, a turning point, not just for her, but for anyone who watched it. The story that began with cruelty ended with clarity. Rebecca lost everything but found her truth. Amara gained everything but remained humble. And as the city lights shimmered below, the world quietly turned the page to a new kind of power, one that began not with dominance, but with dignity. The storm that followed the video's release did not calm quickly. In a matter of weeks, Rebecca Lang's glittering reputation, the one she had guarded like a crown, began to crumble. Her phone no longer rang with invitations to galas or interviews. Her name vanished from society pages that once celebrated her as the queen of grace and philanthropy. The same people who had laughed at her cruel jokes now avoided eye contact when they crossed her path. Luxury brands quietly ended partnerships. Charity boards asked for her resignation. The same reporters who once praised her fashion now reported her downfall in cold, factual headlines. Behind the thick walls of her mansion, Rebecca sat alone, surrounded by portraits of a life that suddenly felt meaningless. Every chandelier, every designer gown reminded her of how quickly admiration could turn into disdain. Daniel Ruiz watched the chaos unfold from a distance. His heart was heavy, not out of pity but out of understanding. He had seen Rebecca's arrogance destroy what they once had. When she refused to take responsibility, he made a choice he had been delaying for years. The separation papers were signed quietly, without argument. The company, now under his full leadership, began to change in ways people could feel. Amara's consulting work evolved into something larger. Her methods, calm, structured, human, started reshaping how the company operated. Teams became more inclusive. Hiring policies changed. Employees began sharing stories of respect, empathy, and transformation. In a quiet ceremony weeks later, Daniel invited Amara to his office. The same man who once watched her serve wine at a gala now stood to applaud her. He handed her a letter of appointment, Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Amara took a deep breath. The title was not just a professional achievement. It was a symbol of everything she had endured, from humiliation to purpose, from silence to voice. The story of Amara Collins. Clips from her training sessions played over footage of her walking confidently through the company halls, now filled with diverse and inspired employees. Her face became a quiet emblem of resilience, not loud, not boastful, just steady and real. Yet when the lights dimmed and the applause faded, Amara's heart still carried one simple truth. All of it began in silence. The same silence she held at that gala when red wine stained her uniform and laughter filled the room. She had not fought back with rage. She had fought back with dignity. One weekend, Amara took a bus out of the city. She carried a bouquet of fresh lilies, her mother's favorite. At the end of a narrow street stood a small, modest home with blue shutters. Her mother opened the door with a warm, tired smile. Amara placed the flowers on the table and hugged her tightly. "Everything I am," she whispered, "is because you taught me to stand tall, even when the world tries to bow your head." Her mother smiled through tears. "And you taught the world that kindness is not weakness." Outside, children played on the street, their laughter echoing like music. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold. Amara looked out the window, not at the mansion lights she once served under, but at the quiet glow of ordinary life. That was where her strength had always lived. Sometimes the world humiliates you to test your grace. But grace, when guided by purpose, can rebuild empires. A woman who turned insult into impact. A story that began with silence but ended in power.